this is kind of the one that...
Kelly and Frank are beginning the process of creating a monument for one of the greatest composers of the 21st century.
Yeah. You see how his face is?
Oh, I see his face.
The team consists mainly of Frank as the head coordinator and Flamekeeper, as well as Kelly Barker, who is the artist in charge of building the monument.
So where do I start about this rock? Well, Frank Geltner found the rock up and out of Siletz at the quarry up there, and he had them save it and told me about it, and we went up there with my truck. It was like the perfect rock. I couldn't believe it.
The project begins in Newport, Oregon.
I'm Ken Spencer from Newport Signs, and we are working with Kelly from Zen Gardens to create a stencil for his sandblasted Ernest Bloch project.
Ken enters the design into the computer so he can begin cutting the outline for the stencil. The project is now taking shape as the team stands over the silhouette of a very special man. But what made Ernest Bloch special, and who was he?
Ernest Bloch, the composer. Now, who was he? Well, basically, he was a person who, when he arrived here in the summer of 1941, quite by accident, had just returned from Europe. He just was on an extended sabbatical. And during that time, he did compose some important pieces, one of which was commissioned out of San Francisco.
So he really made a huge contribution to world music, I would say, in the world classical music sense. And yet here he was in this place away from it all. It was a haven for him. It was the only place that he actually ever owned as a house, having lived his previous life pretty nomadically, going from one place to another, renting places, bringing his family with him, going from Europe to America, then back to Europe, and then back to America. There was a certain restlessness about him, wanting, to feel some sense of belonging somewhere. And this is where he really wound up and where he felt he really belonged. And he loved the sea, and he loved the mountains, and he loved nature, and all of this was expressed in his music.
Originally it was going to be sandblasted etching, and that immediately became clear it wasn't going to work, because I sandblasted for an hour and went through hundreds of dollars of sandblasting material. So I realized I had, basically underbid and messed up, but that doesn't ever bug me. I just come up with the next plan, and so then I realized I could sculpt it by hand with grinders, and so I used heavy grinders.
Yeah, Ernest will be the rough part, and this could all get wind up sanded down so it's actually more of a flat rock and not with any of these things. This is action. There are so many people making the sidewalk and the pad for the monument. It's just exciting. And you talk about a crew that knows what they're doing. They arrived this morning and the cement truck just pulled up. It would have taken me 2 weeks to do this job.
As Kelly finishes the monument, it's time to move the stone to its new foundation for the dedication.
It taxed my equipment, you might say, slightly, but because it weighs about 5 tons and my equipment's really rated for about 3,500.
And during the visit with my grandfather, Ernest, and grandmother, Marguerite, Ernest Bloch wanted to go hunt mushrooms. And he invited me, and we went, and we collected chanterelle mushrooms in the area.
All that you heard today and yesterday and this morning were things that affected my life with what my grandfather did. There's no way I could repeat it and say anything different. So I think
my great-grandfather found this place in Agate Beach. He loved the ocean and he loved being by the water, but his wife had grown up in Hamburg, Germany, and her father was a porter, and so when she came here, she approved of it. He wouldn't have been able to stay had she not said, yes, this is the place.
Hey, when I started this project, I didn't know much about Ernest, and after listening to his music and reading about him and realizing, I got to say that when I came across the one called The Prayer, I was just awe-inspired.
The iconic photo that we have of Ernest Bloch that we use in most of our publications and is actually featured on the monument at Ernest Bloch Place, just a couple hundred feet from here, was actually taken on this bluff overlooking the Pacific Ocean.
Towards the end of his life, he became very unwell. A couple of years before he died, he was diagnosed with cancer, but he had an indomitable spirit, and so therefore he carried on composing anyway, and he composed some very, very fine works right towards the end of his life, mainly chamber music. And I think that the people who loved him really felt that this was the real Bloch, and I think the idea of the Ernest Bloch Legacy Foundation really is to preserve the real Bloch from the earlier years when he was very much alive and when he was contributing so much to the musical world. And he had a very strong philosophy of life right through to the end. Apparently just a few days before he died, he received a gift of a map of the universe. This was something that meant a huge amount to him. He just felt that he wanted somehow to commune with the stars. And this was a gift that he really relished, even though a few days later he passed on. But nevertheless, for those few days, it was a really meaningful thing that he had and that he could really connect with, and maybe it helped him on his way.
you.